Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl, Miss Fighting Fiercely, and before we get into anything today, I just want to take a moment to say Happy New Year, you guys. Can you believe it? We are not only into a brand new year, we are also at the start of a brand new decade. So welcome to 2020, everybody. I hope your new year is off to a fabulous start, and I'm so excited about everything that I have in store for you guys with Fighting Fiercely on the channel. And if you're watching me right now, you have the pleasure of being one of the first to tune in to my season premiere, our very first episode of a new feature that I'm doing called Endo Eats. And I was supposed to drop this video right after the first of the year to coincide with us hitting our goal of making 100 subscribers. So thank you guys to everybody who subscribed, and if you haven't yet, click down below to subscribe right now. And the whole idea was once we hit 100 subs, we're supposed to get a custom URL. So I was going to try to drop this, season premiere with our custom Fighting Fiercely URL, but of course YouTube is tripping, and anything that can go wrong will go wrong, and they still have our account as flagged as ineligible. So we didn't get to do what we planned, but passion over perfection, right? The most important thing is that I get the information out to you guys. So even though we didn't get to do our grand reveal, you're here, I'm here. It's the season premiere of Endo Eats, so let's get into it. So we are back, and as I mentioned before, this is the premiere episode of our web series Endo Eats, where I talk all about the endometriosis diet. So you guys may know it as the anti-inflammation diet. I'm going to be talking about what the diet is, how it's beneficial to us with endo, and the best part about it is I'm going to be just doing my take on weekly reviews on different foods in the anti-inflammatory diet, giving it a thumbs up, a thumbs down if I think it's something that you guys can try, something that will be helpful for you guys. And I think it's going to be really fun. So hang in there with me. We're going to see how this unfolds. And so let's get into our first episode. So today I kind of want to talk about what the Endo diet is. And before we delve into that, I want to first go over all of the many different types of eating groups or eating categories. And I have some of the most common ones or most popular ones here. And I'm sure there are plenty more other than the ones I'm going to mention. So if I miss some, or if you have one that you're trying out, drop down in the comments below and let us know about it. So we talk about eating diets, right? We've got all kinds of eating diets or eating categories across the board, right? You've got your keto, you've got your paleo, you've got your vegetarian, you've got your vegan, you've got your raw vegan, you've got Mediterranean, you've got low carb, no sugar. Of course, you've got your meat eaters, your carnivores, and even under the plant-based umbrella, there are lots of subsets and different categories. You've got fruitarians, people who only eat raw fruits and seeds. You've got raw food vegan. You've got vegan, whole food vegans. You've got under the vegetarians, you've got lacto vegetarian. You've got ovo vegetarian. You've got lacto ovo vegetarian. Then you've got pescatarians. You've got keto folks. Then you've got your paleo folks. You got folks that enjoy a Mediterranean diet. And then you've got me, people who are self-proclaimed flexitarians, who tend to dabble in and across one or more or a little bit of everything from most or all of those eating genres, we'll call them, right? And so, how do all of these different types of eating styles or eating categories affect endometriosis? And the biggest way or the biggest reason that they affect folks with endometriosis is because a lot of the foods in those categories, especially with respect to those that consume heavily meat and dairy products, those tend to trigger inflammation response in the body. As most of you guys know, inflammation is a huge trigger, is a huge component for those of us with endometriosis, and it tends to trigger what we call endo flares or endo episodes. It gives a lot of us what we call endo belly, where the abdomen is really distended and it gets really hard. And for a lot of us, it tends to look like we're pregnant. And so a lot of that trigger comes from the foods that we eat. And just like our symptoms can be triggered by the foods that we eat, a lot of our symptoms can also be alleviated by the foods that we eat. And it's important to take note that just like almost everything with this disease, nothing is a one size fits all, right? And so we know that while diet and nutrition is not a cure for the disease, a lot of women, a lot of endo peeps, including myself, have found great relief in minimizing or sometimes even eliminating symptoms by removing certain foods from the diet and then introducing other foods into the diet. And so, why is an anti-inflammatory diet important for us, and how can it be beneficial? One of the biggest ways that it can be beneficial is because of the estrogen component. So, according to an article I pulled from Endometriosis News, as you guys know, research has shown that a lot of women, or people for that matter, with endometriosis tend to have higher exacerbated levels of estrogen. And estrogen can contribute to the growth and spread of endometriosis. And so by introducing a diet that is anti-inflammatory, it helps to support the liver, which part of the process, part of the function of the liver is to eliminate excess estrogen in addition to other toxins from the body. And it can also help to stabilize our hormones. And so other benefits from the endometriosis diet, and these receipts, because you know I got to have my receipts, I pulled from the Endo Resolved website. So other benefits to the endo diet or anti-inflammatory diet is that it can alleviate a lot of the symptoms of pain. It can alleviate the cramps. It can reduce inflammation, obviously. It can also reduce bloating. We talked about, again, reducing those estrogen levels and balancing hormones. But it can also help to increase overall our energy levels. It can boost our immune system, and it can improve our overall sense of health and well-being. And so before I want to go any further, I'll backtrack a little bit to kind of clarify for you guys. When we talk about an endo flare or an endo episode, what do we mean? And again, that response can look and feel like many different things to many different people. But for me, whenever I would eat or drink something that was triggering for me, I would almost always immediately experience like a hot, painful, throbbing or burning sensation in my lower abdominal area, generally where my ovaries are. It was like a sharp stabbing pain there. I would almost immediately start cramping in my abdomen area. A lot of times I would have painful cramping in my low back. For some people, it looks like excruciating nausea and vomiting or an overall sense of tiredness or malaise. And then a lot of people get what we talked about, the endo belly, with horrible, what am I thinking of? The heartburn and the indigestion, right? And so it looks and feels like many different things, but those are the common things that, the common symptoms that when women or people experience when we talk about having an endo flare. And so if certain foods can trigger that response in the body, right, then the notion is that by eliminating those foods and replacing what we refer to as anti-inflammatory foods, can tend to improve those symptoms. So when we look at the endometriosis diet overall, what are we talking about? And again, the reason why these foods have these triggers is based on the chemical reactions that are caused by certain food groups. And so if certain food groups, like I said, trigger, then certain food groups can also reduce. And again, it's not going to be the same foods for everybody, right? So, for example, foods that may be triggering to you may not be triggering to me, right? And of course, we also know that there are some women that eat trigger foods that aren't triggered. Some people can have coffee and caffeine and aren't affected by it at all. And then we also know that some people can eat as clean as possible, eliminating all trigger foods from their diet, and they can still experience symptoms. So again, it's not a catch-all. Excuse me, this process really involves a lot of experimentation, a lot of trial and error. It's very individual, it's very personal. And again, the things that work for me in this process are not going to be the same things that work for you, and vice versa. So I think that's why a lot of times people avoid having the endo diet conversation, or they get deterred from trying it because they see this long, big list of foods of no, 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 no. And they're like, my God, well, what is it? Can I eat? What can I have? So, and we're going to talk about what's the foods to avoid, right? What are the common foods to avoid in the endo diet? And so the biggest triggers would be wheat or gluten. And gluten is a product most often found in wheat. It's a binding agent. So when you talk about your breads, your cakes, your pastas, all of those have wheat and typically the byproduct of that gluten. Which a lot of women with endometriosis seem to be sensitive to. I know that I worked with a couple of practitioners earlier this year. One was called a nutrition response practitioner, and she did a series of tests and analysis with me and found out that I, in fact, did have a sensitivity to gluten. So I've been on a gluten-free diet or eating regimen. I hate the word diet. For maybe 6 or 7 months now, and I can really, really tell the difference. I'm not 100% gluten free. There sometimes it can't be avoided because it's in practically everything. But I do my best to, deliberately avoid those foods, and I've integrated several gluten-free options into my diet. A lot of those we're going to talk about. Other foods to avoid, typically red meats, or a lot of the poultry and chickens, the red meats, the pork, because a lot of those cause inflammation, and they also have the growth hormones or antibiotics. Refined and concentrated carbohydrates, those are going to be your white foods, your white bread, your white sugar, again, those flours and cakes, pastas, anything made from those refined flours. Because a lot of times when you talk about refined flours or the white flours, the nutritional value has been removed, and that can tend to have a negative effect on your blood sugar levels. Again, refined sugars and honey, those white sugars that they talk about, those can produce a more acidic environment in the body, which also has been known to cause inflammation. There are some honeys, raw or organic honeys, that we'll talk about later on, that tend to be okay and kind of settling for a lot of people. Caffeine is a huge trigger for a lot of people. That's your sodas, your coffees, your mocha double chai, latte, grand, venti, whatever from Starbucks. And it's also found in a lot of teas, actually. Caffeine is also known to have an effect on estrogen. It is also known to inhibit the absorption of iron. Don't scream too loud, ladies, but chocolate. And it says cheap commercial chocolate, as it contains the white refined sugar, which is anti-inflammatory. It mentions that dark chocolate is okay, especially if it has a high cacao content, which tends to have health benefits. And again, when we do our segments on sweets and chocolates, we'll come back to that a little bit. Dairy and produce, those are the big ones. Cheese, butter, milk, cream, all of those has inflammatory reactions, and also they cause a lot of mucus within the body. Fried foods are a no-no, obviously, because they tend to be cooked in saturated fats and oils. So your butter, your margarine, your lards, you kind of want to stay away from those. Soy and soy byproducts. That's a big one, and that's a difficult one, because when you talk about people moving to a vegan or vegetarian diet and they're removing meat and some dairies, a lot of those vegan substitutes for plant-based meats and even cheeses and plant-based milk tend to use soy. A lot of the meats and protein substitutes tend to use soy or gluten or both, and those can be triggering. So it can be a little bit difficult to navigate that area when you're trying to stay away from those foods and still eat healthier or more clean. Obviously, prepackaged convenience foods, they contain a lot of those additives and preservatives and lots of sugar. And lastly, and this was a hard one for me, but alcohol, ladies. Especially a lot of the beers, they have wheat in them. A lot of the wines, they have sulfates in them. And if you're like me, you're a mixed cocktail girl, they tend to be sugary, they tend to be sweet, they tend to be fruity. That's just sugar on sugar on sugar. And not only that, but alcohol kind of sucks up the vitamin B, which is stored in your liver, so it inhibits your liver functionality a little bit, again, for processing, getting that excess estrogen out of your body. And those of you who have been following me, you know, in one of my videos last year, I talked about for almost a year, I had abnormal liver function, that something triggered and they did not know what it was. My liver enzymes were like in the 900s. That was not good. It was not processing and filtering out the way that it should have. And I can certainly say that since my own diagnosis, my tolerance for alcohol is like almost zero. Like, I never really was a heavy alcohol hard drinker, but I'm down to maybe like a Mike's Hard Lemonade, or maybe a wine cooler, or maybe a little bit of wine. If I have like a stronger drink or even a mixed drink, one is pretty much my limit, one or two. So just to recap, you guys, the top seven categories of foods that tend to be triggering are red meat, dairy, sugar, caffeine, gluten and wheat, soy, and alcohol. So, and lots of research has shown that it's been reported by people with endometriosis, those seven categories of foods tend to be the culprits for causing endo flares, as well as making endo belly worse. So if you've heard this list and you're like, my God, this is my whole life. That's my comfort foods. That's my sweets. That's my desserts. That's, my hot chocolate. That's my coffee. What in the world am I going to be able to eat? Well, guess what? You're in luck, because those are all the things that we're going to be talking about in future episodes of Endo Eats. So if you want to know what you can eat, where to get it, the best brands, you've got to tune in each week. So you want to click that subscribe button below. You want to like this video. You want to be sure to give it a thumbs up, because YouTube is really serious about that kind of thing. Be sure to also share with other endo peeps so that they can be educated, enlightened, and empowered, just like you guys. Sorry about that. So yeah, so that's the plan from week to week, is to discuss a category of the endo diet, discuss what foods you can introduce into your diet to kind of help you navigate symptom management via diet and nutrition, which tends to be very effective for a lot of people. And I do want to add this before we go. I think one of the, aside from being overwhelmed with all the what you can't eat, another deterrent is that people just try to jump in head first, and they're like, I'm going to get rid of everything all at once. And that can be overwhelming. And like I said, it can be a deterrent. So what my suggestion would be, what I did when I worked with my nutrition coach, is that I actually kept a food journal. And I did it for about 4 to 6, maybe 8 weeks. And it's basically just journaling and chronicling everything that you eat throughout the day: breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks. But you don't just want to write everything down. You want to note the time of day, the food, and then also you want to note how you felt after you ate that food. So let's say you have bacon and eggs with buttered toast at 9 o'clock, and then you notice at 10:30, 11 o'clock, you're feeling kind of nauseous, you're cramping, you're having symptoms. If you see that that's a pattern, over the next 2 weeks, then you may notice that maybe bacon may be triggering for you. So you want to track what you eat, the time of day, and also how you're feeling after each meal. And usually after about 2 to 3 weeks, you can note a pattern, because we're creatures of habit, right? And so we tend to eat the same things over and over and over again. And so once you notice what's triggering for you, then we can kind of start to take a look at what to eliminate, how to eliminate, and more importantly, what to replace. Because that's what made it easier for me to transition in eliminating foods, is that every time we took something away, we added something so that I wasn't feeling deprived and like, oh my God, I'm losing all of my good stuff all at once. So if you think that something in your diet, what you're eating or drinking, may be triggering your symptoms, try starting a food journal. And again, you want to keep it for a minimum, I'd say 4 to 6 weeks. 8 weeks would probably be ideal. And then that'll give you an idea of what could possibly be causing your symptoms. And as always, I got to state, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical professional. This is not intended to replace the care of your medical professional, but this is just one endo girl talking to all my other endo peeps out there, just sharing suggestions of what has worked for me and what may possibly work for you. So if you have liked what you've seen in this video, I hope you guys have been educated, enlightened, and empowered by it. Again, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. And I haven't really laid out a format yet as to a particular order of what it is that I'm going to be talking about from week to week, which is why you got to subscribe and tune in so you can get notified when new videos drop. But if there's a particular topic or a food group or food that you want me to review, a type of eating category that you want me to discuss, drop down in the comments below and let me know. I'd love to do that for you. And also give me feedback. What do you think about the first episode of the show? Do you like it? Did you not like it? Are there certain stuff you want to see or talk about in upcoming episodes? Let me know. I would love to have your feedback. So that's it, you guys, for episode 1 of Endo Eats. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, don't forget to like, share, subscribe to this video, and I will see you next week. Not sure what we're going to talk about, but I may dive some more into like the eating journals and how to eliminate and how to start placing back. But you got to tune in to find out what we're going to talk about. So that's it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, be educated, be enlightened, be empowered. I'll see you guys in the next video. And as always, keep fighting.